At the beginning of the story, we learn about a certain the Qingming sword sect, which was respected by everyone in the cultivator school. Great cultivators emerge from this place every 100 years. Every 20 years this school recruits members. People from all over the world come there for a chance to get into their rows and here on the night when new students arrived. Older brother says, "Brother, I feel you will get married soon." "Why?" asked the younger. "Because there are so many beautiful girls, I think many would like to hang out with you." And then suddenly the younger brother dumbfounded points to the sky, seeing there's something unusual there. These were incredibly strong thunderstorms that resembled the wrath of the gods. The brothers stood in horror, not knowing what to do. Lightning hit harder and harder without stopping. Suddenly, from the noise of thunder, a cry was heard, "Old man Qingming, I have returned to take revenge." Lightning struck with such incredible force that it began to break through the barrier of the school. Qingming, any person would fall in fear of such power. One of the Bartives tries to call someone for help, but his attempts are unsuccessful. As a result, the elder brother decided to call the elders, and ordered the younger ring the bell. They flew with their power at an incredible flight speed. When they flew over the buildings, they could not understand what happened and where the elders are in such a hurry. People who just arrived there were in a panic, because there was truly chaos around. But they believed that the elders would still come and save them by. Meanwhile, the younger brother was almost at the goal. He got to the bell as soon as he could. "Come back," he exclaimed, and hit the bell with such force that the sound reverberated throughout the area. The sound waves from such a blow could be felt on yourself and even to see with the eyes of. Apparently those who attacked them was a huge wolf who saw how the younger brother hit the bell. He was huge and intimidating, and with each blow he hit harder and closer to breaking the barrier. In the end, after a while, he was still able to break the barrier. The barrier that had existed for thousands of years began to crumble like glass. With a blow, he also destroyed the sect gate and the mountain peak. It was an incredible sight. The whole mountain split like sand, and everything inside was on fire while fragments of the mountain flew to people. The elder brother told everyone not to panic and follow him to another mountain. The leader of the Jiangzi sect soared into the sky, breaking even the height of the already broken barrier. He flew across the sky at a speed light, if not faster. It resembled a shooting star that shone like the sun. He did not stop even when his life was in danger. In the form of lightning caused by the same wolf, this lightning resembled the claws of a predator who tried to grab their prey. Drawing his sword, Jiangzi asked in surprise, "What kind of monster are you? How dare you invade a sect?" This creature began to growl angrily in response. It seemed as if it was death itself in the flesh that came to the souls of the entire sect. This wolf had incredible fangs. After his growl, he began to shout in anger, "What ignorance spreads? How dare you call the thunder demon a monster? What came for Sinming?" He demanded to give it to him. He no longer looked just angry, but it seemed that he was already furious like an unbridled animal. His name was the Demon King Thunder. Jiangzi realized that it was a thunder beast sealed by Qingming 3,000 years ago. He began to tell the demon that Qingming, who is the founder of the sect, became immortal 3,000 years ago, and that if the demon wants to see him, then he should go to the heavenly realm, but definitely not here too. The demon started laughing at his words, and talking about how funny it is that how an old man like Qingming could become immortal. The demon tried to find a plus in this and decided to kill all since they are his last disciples. And then he will go to the heavenly realm for revenge on Qingming. Jiangzi wasted no time, ordered to go to the Peak of 7 Stars for a request for help from the Grandmaster. His assistant flew as best he could because he knew that this battle could be the last for their leader, and Jiangzi thought that the original strength of this beast increased dramatically after he stepped on the lead of the demon, and now he is equal in strength to the immortal. Although Jiangzi is at the level of integration, this is the 7th stage of cultivation out of 9, he is still not suitable for a beast, and Elder Taishan is at a critical point in his training, and if he is disturbed, he will seriously injured. In general, they cannot count on his help. Now the leader can only try to buy time, and here the battle of the sect leader and the mighty demon begins. Jiangzi cut the cluster of lightning in the demon's hand. This cluster of lightning resembled a ball in which they are located. Because of this there was a big explosion, the lightning scattered in all directions. This blow looked very powerful. Did Jiangzi survive such an explosion? Meanwhile the elder brother raced towards the peak of the 7 stars. He so wanted to be in time to help the sect leader that he flew faster than ever. He believed that he would have time 9. And now he was flying up to the peak of the 7 stars. There was a burning house and other buildings. It was one of the highest mountains in the whole district, so he flew there for so long. He walked very confidently and quickly, regardless of all manners. Because the situation was truly emergency and he did not have time for all this, he sat down in a sitting position and put his hand to the floor with a deadpan expression on his face. He was about to say something. Sitting in this position, he shouted sharply to the whole neighborhood that there was strength. The Qingming sword sect is under attack. The leader sent me for you. A voice stretched from inside the house. He said that he understood, extraordinarily a calm and peaceful voice. It seemed as if God himself had come down from heaven to grant them all salvation, and then he slowly opened the door and walked out of it. The elder brother sat waiting. It seemed to him as if time had stood still. When the Grossmeister gracefully left his house, at that time he could only see half of this man, but even so he already understood, on an instinctive level, how strong he is, and then he comes out, in a white kimono. With snow-white hair, a katana on his belt and grey eyes, he really looked like a god. He said casually. The eldest brother relaxed, and asked where Jianzi was now. Grossmeister's name was Bai Chiran. He was a disciple of Qingming. He began to approach the elder brother, who in turn answered the question of the Grossmeister, saying that the leader of the sect was fighting the beast, but the brother was alarmed. He noticed that something was wrong with the Grossmeister. The brother wondered if he had a spirit at all. Why he was in the stage of purifying qi. The brother did not understand what was happening, why the Grossmeister was at such a weak level, because almost all ordinary people, those who know martial arts, can reach the stage of qi purification. And the Thunder Demon can easily defeat the Soul Generation Cultivator, let alone purify qi. And then the older brother realized that it looked like this was the end. And next year this day will be the anniversary of their death. Grossmeister abruptly headed in the direction where the elder brother came from. The elder brother began to ask dumbfoundedly what he was doing, because he thought that he was now weak due to the fact that he was at the stage of purifying qi. Red fumes began to emanate from the Grossmeister. There was a feeling that something incredible was about to happen, and the brother stood in anticipation of this, still not understanding what was happening, and at that moment the Grossmeister flew away at an incredible speed. Impulse waves remained from his jump that could be noticed and felt for himself, and even a small crater remained in the place from which he jumped off. The elder brother was already sweating with fear and only watched from afar as the Grossmeister flew farther and farther away, but he could not help them, because he himself was too weak for this, but he fulfilled his mission meanwhile, in front of everyone. Jianzi was fighting against the Demon King of Thunder. It was truly a respectable battle. Lightning flew in all directions, and it was not clear who was in the lead, but people from afar seeing this battle, they supported the leader of the sect, although they could not help him. But they were obliged to support. This battle resembled a salute of lightning, which became stronger and did not stop in any way. The demon uses some strong ability to cast the spell out loud. He looked confident that he would win now, and the sect leader was really very frightened because of this. He understood that in this battle he cannot win, and all that remains for him is to play for time as soon as he can. Even at the cost of his life, before the arrival of the Grossmeister, this strong blow fell on Jianzi. This blow could really be fatal for the sect leader. Jianzi flies at great speed because of that impact. He can't do anything. Lightning flies after him that struck him. It looked like a falling comet. He flew at all this speed into the ground, and people realized that this was the leader of the sect. And from this fall even the people themselves flew to the sides, because the blow was strong. The whole earth a couple of meters away from him cracked and people could barely stand on their feet. All these people were in shock. They were screaming that he was thrown into the air. That they were not ready for cultivation and wanted to go home to mommy. They were really scared to death and could not influence the situation in any way. As a result, he sat and coughed for a short time, and the floor under him was completely destroyed. For the first 10 seconds he could not move from the pain and anime of the body. He had never endured such pain, but he was still able to stand up leaning on his sword. All his clothes were torn. The laughter of the demon could be heard behind him, and Jianzi himself realized that the difference in strength was too great and he was no match for him. The demon walked up to him and began to laugh, saying that thousands of years later. The receiver of the old Qingming from Zhuangzi was So, and he could not answer anything, because the only strength left was to stay in a standing position. The demon claimed that they had lost, and the sect leader was on the verge, and once again he said that he would destroy the Qingming sect. After these words, he began to create a lightning sphere on the tip of his horn on his head. It looked frightening. And then suddenly the Grossmeister begins to fly from above along the trajectory directly at the demon, and the demon was about to attack Jiangzi and most likely kill him with this attack, but it didn't work out that way for him as the Grossmeister hit him. Flying right into his face at incredible speed, the demon, in turn, does not even seem to understand what happened, because he could not even notice it. The demon had broken a couple of fangs and the jaw as a whole was already broken. By his appearance it could be said that he was dumbfounded and confused. The mark of the blow crushed his face like a cake. From all this, he began to fly straight down at high speed, and his blow was stopped. Even when he fell, he could not yet recover because he was stunned and weakened from the damage he had received when he reached the ground. He crashed even harder than Jianzi, whom he had hit before. The whole earth within a radius of 15 meters was broken. And the demon himself seemed to be defeated, because hardly anyone can survive after such a blow. The people who watched all this did not understand what had happened and were shocked by what they saw, how something unknown knocked down the demon in the blink of an eye, although before that he defeated their leader. All the people stood with their mouths open for a couple of seconds, after which they came to their senses abruptly and only joyful cries and shouts were heard about who was able to defeat this monster. People rejoiced as much as never before. The Grossmeister heroically landed on the ground next to Jianzi. His hair was developing in the wind, and Jianzi himself was glad that Grossmeister had come, and managed to save both him and the rest of the people. But suddenly, from the crater that was formed due to the fall of the demon, a roar was heard, and its frightening muzzle was visible through the heap of dust that had risen, and Grossmeister stood confidently and looked directly at this demon. The demon asks about who he is. And how dare he beat him. It is clear that now he has become even angrier and more violent, but whether anger will help him in the battle with Grossmeister himself, you can't tell from the swelling on his cheek from the blow. Grossmeister introduced himself to the demon as Bai Qiran. This is truly a great man. Not everyone, only a few can so boldly stand in front of the great demon of lightning, without giving a drop of fear or uncertainty of victory. He brazenly declared that today he would replace his master Taoist Qingming in the fight against the demon. This smile on his face and the way he held the sword, everything said that he knew that he would defeat him. This also gave confidence to people who stood nearby. Now we learn about the backstory of Grossmeister Bai Qiran. The story began with the fact that 3,000 years ago the world was full of demons from which people suffered. These demons are very scary, aggressive and strong. Appeared out of nowhere a talented swordsman. He called himself Qingming and killed many demons with his sword, which he could wield without his hands, although he was covered in blood, but in this way the world became peaceful and safe again, after which he accepted several talented students and founded the Qingming sword sect. Bai Qiran is one of them. Before Qingming found him, he wandered around the battlefield providing food for himself and the remains of the dead, and Qingming asked him if he wanted to change his fate. The boy sitting on the corpses only asked who he was, and said that he would not give it up his bun, since he had a wooden spiritual root that was on the heavenly level. He was accepted by Qingming as the third disciple. From now on, call me master, Qingming said, and kneeling he called him that. Bai Qiran was quite intelligent and talented. He started training at 10 and made his first qi purification breakthrough at 12. His training with Qingming was not easy, but he did not give up and studied further, and nothing could break his spirit and desire to become a worthy disciple of Qingming, although he was still small. But he knew that he will achieve what he wants. At that time, not only the Qingming sword sect, but also the entire cultivator world had high hopes for him and thought that he would become the second Taoist Qingming, and Bai Qiuran did not let them down. He trained very hard for 17 years and at the age of 17 he became the youngest a cultivator who has reached the 10th level. His master was so pleased that he even postponed self-cultivation in the room against adversity, and created a pill for Bai Qiuran to accelerate his development. He made it in a large vat. With the help of qi energy, other cultivators came to him and told him that the master was so happy that he had developed a pill for him, and that he had not given them anything like that. He was also glad of such a gift from his teacher, and he ate it gladly. With the pill given by the master and good wishes from other cultivators, Bai Qiuran began his inner cultivation for a breakthrough. After 3 days, the boy left the house calling the master. There were a lot of people near his house and he was immediately asked if he broke through in the next stage. He couldn't utter a word. He had reached the 11th level of the qi purification stage. His appearance was agitated and bewildered that this really happened, after a long hard training. And thanks to the Qingming pill, he was able to overcome the 10th stage of purification qi. Qingming reassured him by telling him that in ancient times, some cultivators even reached the 15th level of qi purification in order to go to the next stage. They achieved a lot after that, in general. He was told not to worry and focus on training. 3,000 years passed, Master Bai became immortal. In the end, the eldest brother became the leader of the sect, but failed and died in an accident. Even the youngest sister learned to fly with a sword. They all mourned his death, because it was a great loss for the entire sect and yet Bai Qiuran. As the most talented disciple reached the 6.6664 level, he only said that he was making a breakthrough again and again and again, until now, even the little child he adopted more than 700 years ago has become an elder and is cultivating for the Heavenly One's adversity. We return to the reality where the battle between Bai Qiuran and the demon takes place. He decided to replace Qingming in the battle with this demon, but the demon with a deadpan expression on his face replied PFF. Ha ha ha. What are you grinding? It's the funniest joke I've ever heard in my life. Mortal in the qi purification stage, how dare you call yourself a disciple of Qingming, the wolf said laughing. Tears even flowed from his eyes with laughter, and snot from his nose. Probably for the first time someone managed to make the great demon laugh. He ordered him to get rid of him, promising that he would leave Bai Qiuran alone, but Bai Qiuran himself was not going to leave. He was preparing to take the fight from the evil demon, no matter what anyone said. And Bai is a strong fighter who can defeat many opponents, but first, he decided to mock the demon by asking him if he was discriminating against the cultivators of the qi purification stage. His mockery with a malevolent smile looked like he was on a different level. And this aura of greatness speaks for itself, it burns with self-confidence. Discriminate? The demon asked, starting to prepare a powerful lightning attack from his mouth. This attack was not inferior in appearance to the attack on the horn. Lightning burst out of his mouth, and he himself glowed as before. Bai Qiuran could be seen in this light. He stood calmly as always, opposite the demon. He released his lightning charge, and this blow looked quite strong. The lightning flew right out of his mouth, opening it very hard, and this lightning shot flew directly at the Grossmeister who was still standing still as before. Because for him it was easy children's toys, people standing nearby shouted to the leader of the sect to run because he could be hurt, and he would not survive this, because he was wounded before, and was defenseless and very weak. The sect leader himself only stood grinning, because he believed in Bai and his strength, which Qingming himself recognized, and he had nothing to lose. If the Grossmeister fell, then no one would save the sect, so he had nothing to worry about. And his behavior was quite normal, and the Grossmeister himself began to release a red flame. His heat exceeded the temperature of a small star. This flame was not just hot, but something that melted everything around, be it earth, water, trees, people, and even the air evaporated from such heat. And this is not the whole power of the Grossmeister. He looked like the sun god who was preparing God's punishment for a sinner in the form of a demon. His blade seemed to turn into fire, because the blade was not visible behind him. And he himself looked so cool that any fighter would envy his abilities and capabilities. He fired this blow directly into the ball with lightning that the demon had released before. the fire went like a pillar to the ball of lightning. It was a clash of elements, but which one was stronger? It didn't matter, because everything depended only on the strength of the owner of the attack. And the fire attack began to cut the ball of lightning. It was an incredibly spectacular battle. The ball crumpled like a ball of water, and the fire cut it like a knife in butter, and he cut it. It was incredible, and the demon did not even understand what was happening as a blow of fire was already flying at him. He had nowhere to dodge, and he could not defend himself either. He could only accept his fate and lose, no matter how sad it was for him. This blow cut the demon in half, like heaven and earth. The battle was over. The Grossmeister coped. The leader of the sect stood behind him, realizing that this was a victory. His inner joy knew no bounds, although the sight was vile. The Grossmeister gracefully continued to stand in the dust from the battle as a winner. He stood confidently on his feet. He knew in advance that he would defeat this demon, because he was no match for him, and so it was another victory for Grossmeister. He was a hero to everyone. Although they suffered losses, and the barrier was broken, but they stopped the impending threat. The demon was no longer alive, cut in half. He could only lie on the ground. His body was very large. He killed thousands of people, after which 3,000 years ago he was sealed by Qingming. But he broke his seal, and then his story ended, but everyone was only happy about it. People stood in shock at what was happening with their mouths open. No one could say a word looking at the carcass of the demon and the Grossmeister standing in front of it. They all had one phrase in their heads: "Is it over?" They continued to look at the sky. Seeing that the storm clouds were cut in half and they dissipated, they were originally caused by a demon, so after his death, the clouds immediately began to dissipate, and for people it was a sign that he had indeed left this world, but they had not yet begun to celebrate. As they were stunned by everything that was happening throughout time, and the sword of the Grossmeister was broken, and to be precise, it was melted by his own fire. This ability was too strong for his sword, and only the handle and base of the blade remained from it. But the main thing was that the enemy was defeated, and repairing the sword was not a problem. Grossmeister sheathed the sword and restored it with his ability. A green light appeared around the hilt, and after that, he pulled out his sword, which was already completely intact. He proudly said, "Don't look down on the cultivating chi cultivators, I am strong enough." He, like everyone else, was glad that it was all over. Although he knew the end from the beginning, this demon did not pose a threat to him. He looked great. From head to toe he was white, handsome, and one of the strongest cultivators. He felt a sense of pride, self-love and calmness. The main peak of the Qingming sword sect, this is one of the remaining mountains after this battle. It was lucky that it survived and remained as green as before. It all looked peaceful and beautiful. It was not for nothing that the sect council meeting room was built there. The light split out of it. There was a beautiful path, a bunch of trees and a couple of buildings nearby. All the meetings on important and not very important topics were held here. All the elders of the Qingming sword sect gather here. A voice spread out from the house. It was gratitude to the Grossmeister for saving them all, and stopping the enemy. The head of the sect said that the cultivation of the Thunder Beast, the same demon, had almost reached the level of the Great Ascension, which is level 9, and if it were not for the Grossmeister, the Qingming sword sect would have perished and the whole world would have been destroyed, but he prevented this worldwide disaster with his power. Grossmeister himself said that it did not matter, that among the first generation of disciples, he was the only person left in this world, and his duty was to protect the sect that he had left behind, to protect it at any cost, even his own life. In addition to him, everyone else was sitting in the hall besides him. The elders who listened to his speech, the leader of the sect himself reported that fortunately no one was injured during this attack, but they need to restore the sect. It is not an easy matter, not everyone can cope with it. The head entrusted this task to one of the elders, Bi Yunzi. And as for the defense array and the restoration of the sect, Qin Yun was ordered to supervise the first-generation disciples, and Lu Yun would help her with everything related to budgeting. Pronouncing the assignments, the head of the sect looked quite determined and serious. They both understood their tasks. The sixth elder Taoist Lu Yun claimed that she would deal with it right now. She looked quite serious and calm, and the seventh elder Taoist Qin Yun only smiled. We hope she really understood the task. They both jumped off the ground and started flying. They both had white residual trace, like Grossmeister's red, the head is blue, and so on. They flew very beautifully and harmoniously across the sky strewn with stars. How good it is to look at these mountains when they do not fly to pieces and do not burn from lightning charges. There was fog over the hills, only the Grossmeister, the head of the sect, and two more elders who were not given instructions remained in the room. It was evident that the head intended to say something to the Grossmeister. He slowly walked towards him. The Grossmeister glanced at the head of the sect, waiting for what he wanted from him. And then the Grossmeister thought about his own, how to restore the sect, about defeating the demon, as well as over his past. The head of the sect stared at the Grossmeister, looked him straight into the soul. He only tried to pluck up the courage and formulate the words to say what he wanted. In the end he asked the Grossmeister if he could do anything for him. It was clear that he barely dared to ask this. Grossmeister sighed and replied that time flies by unnoticed. Everything happened so quickly that the lame boy from the street was able to grow into the leader of the Qingming sword sect, although the Grossmeister himself became the successor of Qingming. Being in front of this boy sitting on the battlefield and eating the corpses of the fallen soldier in order not to die of hunger. The head said that it was all thanks to the Grossmeister. If he had not saved his life, he would have died surrounded by demons, and this is a terrible death, especially for a cultivator. The head was really grateful to the Grossmeister for everything he had done for him and for the sect. And this gratitude was not fake. The Grossmeister informs them that tomorrow he is going to come down from the mountain. The elders and the head who were nearby were stunned by this, and excitedly wanted to say something, and the Grossmeister himself was confident in saying this. And then the leader of the sect decided to say that the sects will soon find out about the attack of the Thunder Beast, and he is afraid that without the Grossmeister they will be in great danger, because if someone of the same level of strength attacks the village again, both the elders and the new cultivators who have just arrived to learn the Qingming school will die. Grossmeister began to think. In total, there are 5 sects in the Taoist Union of Zhengqi. Tell me, which of the leaders of the other 4 sects you think can fight you, and as for the 4 cults of the demonic world, can any of the lords defeat you? The chapter pondered and he did not know what to answer, because he is really strong, but whether he will cope with the above enemies is another question, and he did not give him rest, because if the enemy is stronger than him, then the whole sect will fall. And upon the arrival of the Grossmeister he will no longer be able to protect anyone, but in response to the Grossmeister says that they have such a sect leader as Jianzi, as well as many elders of the fusion stages 7 and the transformation of the deity 6. They will be perfectly able to protect the sect while the Grossmeister is absent. Jianzi, the head of the sect, decided to ask why the Grossmeister suddenly needed go down the mountain, because ever since he moved to the peak of the 7 stars, he had not left it for hundreds of years. This question had eaten away at Jianzi's inner curiosity, because it was really strange, and he just needed to know the answer to this question. The Grossmeister, standing with his back to the head of the cult, replied, because he was feeling. After these words, there was a short pause, but during this time a bunch of ideas and possible reasons for why he wanted to go down the mountain had already flown in the head of the head. But they were all false, because the Grossmeister wanted to go down from there because he felt that he would soon make a breakthrough. It was clear from Jianzi that he was disappointed with just such a reason, and he said only okay, for that his curiosity was quenched. But this gloating smile of the Grossmeister when he spoke about the breakthrough was insignificant. At that moment he was really creepy. His instincts tell Grossmeister that he can handle it this time, but he still needs some herbs for the super foundation pill. So he has to go in search of them himself. The 2 elders knew that this was not the first time and quietly said, not again. Grossmeister abruptly glanced back, thinking that he needed something. His eyes sparkled with enthusiasm, because he had not had a breakthrough for a long time, and for him this is a significant event. Stretching out his hand, he asked the head of the sect for some money in grass tianqin. The head of the sect at once something it was confusing, and he looked at the hand of the Grossmeister for a couple of seconds and thought about how to answer him, and the Grossmeister waited looking directly not at him, as if he was saying, well, what are you waiting for? As a result, the head began to talk about the fact that he was all right with the money, but as for the Tianqin grass, it is at the auction of the Taoist Union, and it is not as easy to get as it seems, so the head even thought to dissuade the Grossmeister. And said that he did not think that the Grossmeister would really make a breakthrough, and in the end the grass would be wasted. He was very scared to say this to the Grossmeister, because he did not know how he would react. He spoke stammering and uncertain, his mouth was dry. And he was sweating with fear. All you could tell from his face was that he was very angry. This look was arrogant, angry, uncomprehending, and it seemed to everyone at once that he would now kill the head of the sect for what he said, and would not stand on ceremony. But in the end he was a Grossmeister, and such behavior was not according to his status, no matter how angry he was. "Well, it's okay if you don't give it to me," he said with a very angry look, as if he was trying to put pressure on Jianzi's pity. But the Grossmeister himself was uncomfortable with the fact that they did not believe in him, although he had done so much for the sect. "I'll ask the boy for money, Lu Yun," he said, and was also going to talk to her about how Xian Yun, Fu Yun and Bai Yun spied on her and Qin Yun when they took a bath 300 years ago. All the elders who were there immediately jumped up from their seats, realizing that it was impossible for him to tell them about this prank. Second elder Xian Yunzi began to shout, "Big brother, Grossmeister has been protecting our sect for more than 3,000 years. Now he just wants to get a little weed from you. How can you even refuse him? It will be dishonest and not right, and you, as the leader of the sect, must maintain equality and order." The leader himself was shocked and did not know what to say to his younger brother, who fell to his knees in front of him, who was trying to challenge his decision, but another elder said that he agreed with the opinion of the second elder, and that they should respect the elders, and if necessary, comply with their requests. Grossmeister is our eldest. If the elder wants something, his students will definitely find it for him. This is what we call filial piety. That's what the same fourth elder Fu Yunzi said. Even though they did all this for profit, so that the Grossmeister would not tell that truth, but this is what I wanted. You. The head of the sect could not utter a word, looking at these two, who literally begged him to save them and keep the secret, but he understood that that herb was indeed very rare and worth perhaps more than a secret. So he could not make up his mind until a dialogue was held. Another elder joined. He quickly walked to the head, and he, in turn, no longer knew what to expect and what to do, but he understood that he could not withstand the pressure from the three elders. The fifth elder, Bai Yunzi, also supported the point of view of the other two elders, because in order to force it was necessary to try to give the head of the grass to all of them, otherwise their reputation and their life would have come to an end. And then he began to threaten and tell the head the facts, that it was Jiangzi who then took the initiative. The fact that Lu Yun and Qin Yun would not meet them halfway if they found out about it, the head was now as confused as possible and he sweated. It seemed that he was about to give up, because he had there was no choice left. The Grossmeister, after hearing all that he expected, turned and began to look at Jianzi with a malevolent smile in anticipation of his answer. The plan of the Grossmeister worked. And the head psychologically could not withstand the pressure from his allies. They all stood over him and looked down with a ghostly look, as if they were saying, either you give him this grass, or we will kill you right here and now, and the head rushed and fell on a chair from stress. With a depressed and broken grief from the fact that no one supports him, he nevertheless gave up and tells the Grossmeister that he, as his great student, will find everything he needs, and ask people to send them to the peak of the 7 stars, that is. The Grossmeister will not have to collect these things personally. Good boy. Finally, the Grossmeister said, starting to leave the chapter with an incredibly gloating smile, such a face is inherent only in the main villains. And it was rather strange to see how the Grossmeister behaves exactly like the main villain, and the head himself was in mourning and could not recover from the clever move of the Grossmeister. Finally, after a long time, the Grossmeister comes out of the building and literally jumps off the ground and begins to take off, leaving behind him the impulse of a very strong and sharp jump, and a whistle spread over the foggy mountains that everyone in the area could hear. He flew through the sky with a very, very smug look, and laughed gloatingly. He had been preparing to make a breakthrough for many years, and therefore it is clear why he was so happy about him. He understood that he had everything he needed, and he could go down to the mountains tomorrow. Although he wanted to make a breakthrough as much as possible faster, this time I will definitely reach the stage of erection of the Foundation 3. He pondered as he happily flew across the sky, leaving an orange trail behind him, after some time of his flight. Which was not so long due to the skills and experience of the Grossmeister. His flight speed was great. He landed on the peak of the 7 stars, a loud boom and slightly cracked ground could be heard from his landing, as a trace of his arrival. He got up and began to look around. The dust that rose as a result of his fall settled a little on the floor. It seemed that he was even a little scared there, even though he was a Grossmeister and an incredibly strong person. "Is there someone here?" he asked. Looking at the house from which the unusual emanated, the dim green light, with the heat he raised, it all looked like some kind of horror movie. "Exactly, this is the Grossmeister and not some ordinary person. He is not afraid of anything and simply opens the doors of this strange house from which the same green color emanated." He did not just open the door, but opened it without one second thought. As he entered, he saw a man sitting on a bed, souls to his left and right, or something similar to them, and he was wearing a purple kimono and a strange hat. "Oh, it's you, Xue Lin." What was the matter with a frustrated look? Grossmeister, apparently he expected to meet someone else here. But definitely not of this man. He just sighed and began to wait for a response from Xue Lin. He stood in front of the Grossmeister, resembling a zombie or necromancer, pale skin, a strange shoulder pad the color of 2 souls flying around him, and the look of the murdered man. He began to tell Bai Qiu-ran that today was the day of his death. He said this so not forcefully, without experiencing any emotions. It was scary to hear such words from a person who looked like a corpse. This whole scene resembled a moment from a horror movie or TV series. The reaction of the Grossmeister himself was ambiguous. He looked at this person with incomprehension. From his expression on his face, one could only say that he did not understand what he was talking about. To say Lin, in general, his misunderstanding was logical. Since you are not often told this in everyday life, there was an awkward silence in the room after Sei Lin's words. It turned out that more souls were flying around him. This silence lasted a couple of minutes before the Grossmeister said to him, "Just not again." Okay. I got it. It's time for you to go." He was trying to get rid of a strange guy who bothered him with his phrases that confused even such a person. A person like Bai Qiu-ran, even when the Grossmeister said this and waved his hand at him, he continued to stand still and silently. There was an awkward silence in the room again, which seemed to annoy the Grossmeister himself. And then this man began to talk about the fact that 3,000 years had passed. And it's time for Grossmeister to give up. The Grossmeister himself, not taking it seriously, picking his nose, asked again, "Will they give up?" He stood in incomprehension. Although rather he did not want to understand what this man was talking about, because Grossmeister is not one of those who give up. And then he shouted sharply that so much time has passed, and the Grossmeister still can't reach the next stage. "Stop cultivating and follow me to the underworld," he said. It sounded very strange, especially from such a person-looking person, as if he himself had just climbed out of the underworld, and now he was calling there the others. And yes, it is. Xue Ling works for the King of Hell in the underworld. He is one of those who take the souls of people, so he looked like that and said such strange things, and these souls hovering around him, the souls that he took. No person, including cultivators, can see the soul collector unless Xue Lin chooses to show himself. The only exception is Grossmeister Bai Qiu-ran, who is dying, so he can see soul gatherers. And despite the fact that Bai Qiu-ran is super powerful and can kill the heavenly beast with a sword, he is still a level 2 Qi purification cultivator. A cultivator of the Qi level 2 purification stage can live no more than 300 to 400 years. If he fails to reach the level 3 foundation erection stage, his body will disintegrate and his soul will be carried away by the soul collector to the underworld for reincarnation. However, as a cultivator of the level 2 Qi purification stage, Bai Qiu-ran is different from the others. First, the never-ending life Qi in his body ensures that his flesh will never decompose. Secondly, he has a higher woody spiritual root. So that his body can fully absorb the effect of the pills. Which means that it can take as many pills as he wants. Each of the so-called longevity pills can extend a person's life by 5 years. However, after a few receptions, it loses its effectiveness. And we can observe such cases when all sorts of old men, being at death, ask the collectors of souls not to take them, and they stuff dozens of these pills into themselves. But unfortunately or fortunately, it doesn't work for Bai Qiu Zhan. It has been alive for over 3,000 years thanks to these longevity pills. Bai Qiu Ran and Xue Lin first met 2,000 years ago, in some dense mud swamp. Xue Lin, as a young ghost, had just become a soul collector. His job was to capture Bai's soul. And this was the first time that Bai Qiu Ran had reached the end of his life. He was caught in a relic. Left by the immortal, so that he could not perfect and take the longevity pill in time. He reflected on the fact that he had never been to such a place. It is filled with spiritual energy. He feels that. Faithfully. He has such a feeling that this time he will be able to make a breakthrough. As he was in the past and remained in the present. Sei Lin crept up to him from behind, creating a black aura around him. He looked like he wanted to kill the Grossmeister right now, even though his job was to take his soul. Bai Qiu Ran, you are going to die soon. Come with me. Confidently, he stated, however. What answer did he expect if Bai Qiu Ran was trying to make a breakthrough and was busy, and he didn't go after him, so as soon as Bai noticed him, he was immediately at a loss that some goat wanted to kill him, but before he could turn around, he had already begun to chain his soul. Bai Qiu Ran, in turn, believed that he would soon make a significant breakthrough. So he fought and resisted. As a result, as expected, Bai Qiu Ran hit him with all his strength, breaking his body all over the floor. It was really powerful, all the fragments of stone scattered in different directions, and a huge pile of dust rose that resembled a big explosion. But it was only a blow from Grossmeister Bai Qiu Ran. After all, the chains that hold soul, could not restrain Bai. Nay. Bai Dade knocked all the shit out of Xue Lin, and he stood there all beaten, with bruises, a swollen face, and blood in some places. It was clear from him that he regretted attacking this monster that could not be contained, at least he would not have enough strength to do so. Xue Lin was so angry with the defeat that he chased Bai Qiu Zhan for several months, wherever he went, took off, swam, he still followed him in order to sooner or later guess the moment to attack him and carry out an assignment from the underworld. But he did it exactly until Bai Qiu Ran accepted a new longevity pill. As a result, Sei Lin had to return disgruntled to the underworld. Bai Qiu Ran, someday I'll get you. Wait and see. Then he went to a portal surrounded by a black aura. This portal led to the underworld. That's how they became a thorn in each other's heads, for 2,000 seconds extra years. Whenever Bai Qiu Ran is about to die, Xue Lin appears and disturbs him. Constantly saying the same phrase when coming, you will die, you will die, you will die. Surely Bai Qiu Zhan himself is already very tired of this, but on the other hand, this is Xue Lin's work, and there is nothing to blame him for. And then a new story begins from the past, hundreds of years ago until the moment when Xue Lin already said in the present, you will die Bai Qiu Zhan. A bunch of strong soul gatherers came to Bai Qiu Zhan, one giant vampire, another bull, a trident horse, a centaur, and so on. It was clear that they came to Bai Qiu Zhang's soul, at least because they almost never come all together for one soul, and it was also understandable because they were led by Xue Lin, who thought that victory was already in his hands, since he had brought so many of his comrades. But Bai Qiu Zhan woke up from their presence and only yawned. The underworld has sent a great army of soul gatherers and judges to help Lin, which then became a failed operation. After that, the underworld gradually abandoned the idea of capturing the soul of Bai Qiu Ran. They all turned out to be just weaklings that Bai Qiu Ran dealt with in the blink of an eye. While not hurting himself, his victory was really spectacular. Shui Lin practically became Bai Qiu Ran's death alarm. Whenever Bai's days are numbered, the soul collector appears and reminds him that he is going to die soon, so to some extent it is even useful for Bai Qiu Ran, which is probably why he still hasn't killed this soul collector. It's time to perfect the pill longevity. Your cultivation base can receive much more true spirit than the average person. To build a foundation, you need to condense your life qi. You've already absorbed so much life qi. Are you planning to purify the sea of true spirit in your body? Shui Lin asked Bai Qiu Ran. And told him to just follow him to the underworld, because the immortal emperor promised that after death he would become the king of hell, ruling over the ghosts of the 10 palaces. Not everyone is given such an opportunity. Probably no one has even been offered such an opportunity yet. But Bai Qiu Ran refused. It was quite an expected answer. After all, he is the master of the Qingming sword sect, not an ordinary person, and he also stated with a confident look that he was determined to build his foundation. And that meant only one thing, that he would do it. Shui Lin looked at Bai Qiu Ran like an idiot, and said nothing. You know the rules. If you can't prolong your life in time, I will come and take my soul. Shui Lin reported this to Bai Qiu Zhan when he halfway through the portal. It was not clear what he was hoping for, seeing how confident Bai Qiu Ran was in himself and what he was doing. There was not a single chance that he would agree to the offer. Now Sei Lin, Bai Qiu Ran himself, also thinking about what he was counting on, looked at how he climbed into this portal with a face of contempt and washed like, is he stupid? And then he looked into the void, thinking about his own. Whether he would definitely succeed, and whether it would be cool to become the chief in the underworld, but he was quickly distracted from of these thoughts. Falling on the bed, when he fell, his snow-white kimono developed like bird feathers develop on the fly. He fell quite loudly. And lying on this couch, he thought about the fact that every year his life ends, and he has to take pills to maintain his life. For 3,000 years, Bai Qiu Ran tried his best break through the bottleneck, but he couldn't, and he knew that maybe this was his last chance. At least that's why he was as determined as we can see, but he was still tormented by doubts and thoughts about what would happen if it didn't work out. For those who once had high hopes for him ascended or died from sorrow, from contractions, all this also hurt the soul and heart of Bai Qiu Zhan himself, because no matter how strong he was, he is still a person. He has emotions, he knows how to love, grieve, cry, be sad, feel a sense of loneliness and many other different feelings, and those who tried to catch up with him or the Qingming sect, they were all killed by him, and absolutely no one was able to escape, because for his loved ones and his life, he is ready to kill, use his strength to protect. Like a real hero who came to save the world, for his determination and strength, everyone respected him, like the late head of the Qingming sect, the one to whom he felt the emotion of love, his love, married long before that, he was left alone for 3,000 years. It's really terrible how not to look at it, and all he could do was just exist and try to make a breakthrough, but perhaps it was because he was lonely and he did not have love and support he could not make this breakthrough. Bai also refused to take a place as the leader or elder of the sect. Instead, he went to the peak of the 7 stars, to the most remote place to live in seclusion, but even with his refusal, the elders and everyone from the sect respected and revered him, because he remained their guardian protector, and his strength only grew. But now he has no partner, no reputation, he just lay on the bed thinking about what to do next. It was hard for him both physically and mentally. He was literally killed internally from everything that his comrades were dying because they could not make a breakthrough, as his love went to another. And in the end he was left alone. He cultivated alone for 3,000 years just to build his foundation, and get the opportunity to live on. That's just why he should live on. He himself did not understand this and tried all the time to find the answer to this question. Maybe in order to make breakthroughs all his life, or to provide protection to the Qingming sect. From all these thoughts, he was constantly spinning on the bed and thought how troublesome it was, why his life turned out this way. Maybe it would be better for him to be born a simple person in general, not knowing all this, and live a peaceful, calm life, without fights, losses of all loved ones due to the fact that you live for thousands of years, and many other disadvantages. He realized that it looked like he would have to look for herbs to make a longevity pill, because he couldn't 100% count on the fact that he would still be able to make this breakthrough, cultivate, and live forever, so he would have to find it if he didn't do it himself. Otherwise Sei Lin would come to him and Bai Chiu Ran would never be able to cultivate it again. We moved to a city called Shenzhen, under Qingming Mountain. In Shangshuan you can find all the materials Bai Chiu Ran needed for the pill. He still decided to go to the city and buy them there. It was a kind of journey once again to save his life from certain death, and his salvation was a pill. As he walked through this city, he suddenly saw a horse as white as himself, and looked at it. Horses are noble creatures, and Bai Chiu Ran himself is a noble man, so the horse suited him very well, although he knew how to fly. The girl leading the horse asked him if he liked the horse and led her to him. Bai Chiu Ran sat on it, putting his foot in the harness, for which it was worth preparing. His leg stood as if he was about to hit the horse with it and it would run as fast as he could. And he would be suspected of robbery. The saleswoman began to tell him to wait and just walk. Bai Chiu Ran began to move quickly on the horse, unable to stop him, but it is for him like, and he said it directly out loud. The saleswoman of this horse continued to tell him and the horse would stop. Because she did not want him to fall now, or run away with the horse, but she could not do anything, because she is an ordinary weak woman, and if Bai Chiu Ran wanted to rob her, he did it, even without the energy of qi. He threw a whole bag of money to the saleswoman. She immediately said that he had given her too much money, and the horse was not worth so much, but he, in turn, told her to keep it for herself. They say, they were given to her by the Taoists in the mountains. Bai Chiu Ran was in no hurry to cultivate, but on the contrary, he bought a horse and went to Shangchuan. With a smile on his face, he drove on this horse that there is strength. Joyfully he thought that this is how it should be in the mountains. Flying to your destination is so boring. And traveling is the best. This was the opinion of Bai Chiu Ran, and he was right, because constantly flying is so boring and you quickly get used to it, not like riding a horse or walking, isn't it him? Then he abruptly realized that he did not know how to control the horse and how to stop it. He tried to scream, kicked. After some time he did not understand how to stop it and even thought to jump off, but he succeeded, either due to the fact that the horse was simply tired of running so much, or due to the fact that Bai Chiu Ran made the right move or made the right sound. Because of all this, he managed to sweat a lot and be afraid that he would not stop her and only wasted money. He was in doubt and did not know if he would be able to control her away, because this could lead to certain problems that seem obvious to anyone. Paused for a second, he realized that he might as well gallop like this. He was oppressed by the fact that he had acted stupidly by buying a horse without knowing how to control it, although he was a great cultivator of the Qingming sect. But this does not mean that he must be able to do everything in the world. This rank and ability only gave him strength and ability to fly. At least it is and very useful abilities, but he has spent almost his whole life on them and does not know how to do much else. Riding a horse, he thought about his first destination. It was the Man Mountains. At his current speed it would take 6 to 7 days. He could not even think that it would be so long, and in the moment he even had a thought, just fly there as he usually did, and then on the road he met some people. He could not see them normally, because they were standing quite far away, but he did not have a good premonition. These people began to shout at him to stop. It shouted 3 people who stood on the road in an attempt to block Bai Chiu Zhan's path. As he drew nearer, he realized that they were robbers. The real ones. One had a huge sword in his belt with which to slay the boar with one stroke, and the others were apparently his assistants, who also shouted and called him white-haired, telling him to stop immediately. As we all understand here, it is obvious why they are his. Stopped. Riding into them, he tried to stop the horse, because last time he did it badly and most likely by chance, surrounded by robbers who are trying to stop his horse. Among this, he does not know how to stop it, trying as best he can, understanding what an awkward situation it is. And the robbers might think that he is resisting and hurt the horse. In the end, Bai Chiu Ran was able to stop it, and sweating but proud asked them what was the matter. At that moment he was only worried about how he looked. Whether everything was normal with the horse, and the fact that it seemed that he had somehow learned to control it, and even among the robbers in his heart, he was happy with this small but still achievement. The robber began telling Bai Chiu Zhan that he is such a noble man, and that they, the brothers, need money just in case, and he will certainly be able to help them. Anyone who would see it knowing Bai Qiu Zhan would not envy these unfortunate robbers, because they would not be able to touch Bai Qiu Ran, the master of qi cultivation. A disciple of Qin Ming and the owner of another many ranks and titles, he saw that 2 more robbers were coming up from behind. He tensed a little, although he understood that even 5 robbers hardly had a chance against a war like him. Even he himself was sorry that they fell on him. But for that he would teach them a lesson that not only the people they attack can be a victim, and they themselves. Bai Qiu Ran sat on his horse and made an assessment of the opponents. First he asked if they were robbers, and if he remembered correctly, they were not on the Shangchuan government road. Then he evaluated their leader, the strongest. He was the cultivator of the body training stage 1, in the last stage, the rest are in the middle stage of cultivation. And so that said the leader of the robbers, claiming that now the empire in Shangchuan is on its deathbed, he was really very confident in himself and in his strength, and that in which case they would crush the wanderer with their numbers. Just up to this point he had not met opponents stronger than him, so he believed that he could defeat absolutely anyone. And he Bai Qiu Zhan began to threaten the battle, saying that if he doesn't give them money today, then he's finished. In the future, if he has it, he could very much regret that he climbed on the enemy without knowing who he was and what his strength was. So in battle, one of the most important abilities is to correctly assess the strength of your opponent. Bai Qiu Ran looked at this man with contempt, and it was clear how angry and disappointed he was, and he thought that Shangchuan was still a prosperous country when he came down from the mountain hundreds of years ago. The people here lived in peace and prosperity, but now everything seems different, and this upset Bai Qiu Ran very much. Such moments touch his soul again, make you sad for the past and doubt ordinary people. Without hesitation, Bai Qiu Ran took up his sword and began to pull it out of its scabbard, thinking that cultivators should not interfere in the politics of the worldly world. This was taught to him by Master Qin Ming, but everything will be different if the robbers interfere with him. Bai Qiu Ran was at the same time furious and perfect calm. Such a feeling only happens a couple of times in a lifetime. One of the robbers shouted to be careful because he was attacking, the other began to laugh and ask if he was going to resist. After which he told him how many people they had there, saying that he had no chance, but they greatly underestimated their opponent. This can destroy them and make this battle. This robbed them last. Bai Qiu Ran, with a lifeless look, uncertain about anything, rushes into battle with contempt. Thinking only that he doesn't care about the politicians in Shangchuan, but these robbers can harm innocent people. As a follower of the Qinming sect, he will undoubtedly destroy each and every one of these robbers, leaving no trace of their existence. It was one of the most uncontrollable moments in Bai Qiu Ran's life, as he couldn't control his emotions, but then suddenly out of nowhere someone shouts to stop. Bai Qiu Ran didn't understand what was happening. But he stopped despite his frenzy and desire to kill all these vile freaks who spoil the lives of ordinary people who can't even really protect themselves. But even the robbers themselves did not understand where this voice came from, and they were also unhappy with this, because they wanted to quickly deal with the one they were robbing and go get drunk. Bai Qiu Ran thought that this was a diversionary maneuver to kill him. So he was on guard in spite of all this. Unlike the stupid robbers who looked away from Bai Qiu Ran, it was a girl who jumped off the floor quite strongly in the direction of one of the robbers. He stood in a misunderstanding of what was happening here. Because they were used to the fact that they were always hunters, and were not ready for such unforeseen situations as this. But this is life, and it cannot be calculated whether you are the greatest cultivator or the strongest monster. Before the laws the universes are all equal. This girl flew from her foot right into the face of this lousy robber, with a heroic cry in her opinion. From this blow the robber's tooth fell out and he himself still did not understand what was happening, and the girl's blow was well placed. Bai Qiu Ran, who was watching all this, wondered who she was that she knew how to do such techniques. As a result, this robber flew from this blow, his swords flew out of his hands, he even flew over Bai Qiu Ran's horse. This blow was really very effective and strong. The robbers standing nearby were at a loss from what was happening. They could not realize that during the robbery of the Sranik they were attacked by a girl who was able to hit them so hard, comrade, with just one blow. The leader of the robbers was barely able to catch his comrade, although not without problems. it was quite difficult for him to catch a body flying from such a blow, even considering that he was a cultivator of chi muscles of the first level, although he looked at the appearance menacingly. But in fact he is very weak. If they are weaker than this girl, then Bai Qiu Zhan is even more so. Although it was so obvious, she landed gracefully on her extraordinarily large boots, and the robber, all dumbfounded, asked who she was. He was already trembling with fear when he saw this blow, and tried to restrain his fear so that his comrades and she herself would not notice it, because the predator attacks the prey that is afraid, but it is unlikely that he will have a chance even against her, let alone Bai Qiu Zhan. The girl began to declare how dare they rob others in broad daylight. No one can stand above the law. She said, it was clear that she had a mania for the law and she was obsessed with justice. It cannot be said that this is bad, because she helps those who cannot protect themselves. If you think about it, then she is a kind of real hero who does not ask for anything in return for her help, but does everything purely because of her heightened sense of justice, which overwhelms her every day.